Well, I know it's been forever since you've all seen us. You're looking well in these the years that have passed, right, Steve? Steve, your hair's gotten grayer since last
Uh,
time we spoke.
yeah, I think so. Actually, if you actually, I'm wearing a different pair of headphones right now, so it does look a lot greater, doesn't it? Or we can just say
It
people
does.
have been like what a year since we've been on, so
Yeah.
time dilation.
Can you do
Yeah.
dreads? I think that'd be the next step. Or are those
I guess I
culturally
could.
appropriated now? I need to check.
Oh, I don't mind.
You
I'll
might not be
culturally
able to.
appropriate. I could do a French braid that you need to
You gotta
get
do
three
That would be
quarters.
cornrows,
cute.
Steve. You gotta do cornrows.
Oh,
There you
cornrows,
go.
yes.
That's what I'm going to go for. Exactly,
Yeah.
cornrows.
Philosophy, motherfucker.
Yo, man,
Um,
get some spiritual
well, welcome
enlightenment
back.
from the ganj. Yeah,
Tonight, now
down
we are
with
going
that.
to have a debate on biblical prophecy between Mind of God. Welcome back,
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
and welcome. I need to slow down sometimes. Let's welcome him to the show for the first time. Kaanfight. How are you doing,
Hey, what's
sir?
up? Oh,
Oh, not much, man. You guys are what's up.
yeah.
I alluded to this last night, but I just want to tell you guys about four. By the way, we will be having a Saturday night fight tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and then we will be taking off until the 26th. So unless something comes up in the America, we always say that we're going to take off those days, but we always wind up finding something to stream about. Maybe we'll do something on Christmas. I don't know. But right now we'll have the next 4 days blocked off so that you guys can enjoy your holidays, and then we'll be back the day after Christmas with sort of an interesting thing we're going to do with modern day hysteria. We're going to start a debate on this channel and then finish it on his. So we're doing kind of a cross thing with him. I really like what he's doing on that channel, so we said that we would do this with him, and I think it'll be kind of cool. So you can check that out. And then on that Thursday, I'll let Steve tell you who Dr. Protherio. Is it, Steve?
Yeah,
You can let him know about him.
Oh, he's a very famous paleontologist. Anybody who's in paleological fields or science fields have probably heard of him. He's been in hangouts before. I've actually talked to him in a hangout. Very, very pleasant gentleman. It's going to be huge to have him on. Like I said, he's one of the leading experts in paleontology. So.
Mm-hmm. And then on that Friday, we have a really good show. I think the guy that owns incels.me, that is the number one forum for incels, will be here, and he will be having a conversation with Christy Winters. So it can either go really good or really bad, and I'm hoping that it goes really good, because I think them being on completely opposite ends of the spectrum would just be a really good conversation. Aside from that, we have coming up, just to let you guys know, we have Trevor Valley versus a former InfoWars correspondent. We've got JF, who has, and it is, yes, that JF, the French JF, who has really abhorrent views on race realism. We're not going to be talking about that. Don't worry. We're not going to go into that. But he got into a little bit of a dispute with John Perry from Stated Clearly, and John asked if we would host a debate between the two of them. And so they're going to be debating memes. And no, not those kind of memes. Yeah, I was shocked too. There's another kind of meme out there.
I think it will get into race realism. I don't see how it can't. I really think that if they're going to be talking about memes, and we're talking about genes versus memes, as far as like the selfish gene and Richard Dawkins, then I think there's going to be some overlap there. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Maybe. Do you want to know who really, I think, like just handed it to him in a race realism debate was Destiny. I was listening to that earlier today. Destiny just kind of handed it to him, like, in a major way. So I mean, that was really good on his part. There was one other big debate that we had coming up. Steve, do you remember it off the top of your head? I'm a little scatterbrained right now.
I think you got most of them.
Hold on, bear with me. I know I'm missing one. All right, January. We've got Paula Gia and SJ on the 7th. And then Trevor Valley, Bible Teaches Flat Earth. Maybe I did get them all. Maybe I did.
You got Trevor. You mentioned that one, yeah.
Yeah, Trevor. I got Dan Palladino from the actual Flat Earth Society. He will be here. Flat Earth Society is, of course, the official organization of Flat Earth, and so one of the executive members there, has agreed to come on and talk to us. So that'll be cool. All right. Let's get into some biblical prophecy. The way this is going to work, we're going to let Mind of God go first. We've broken down into rounds. The first 2 rounds will be 10 minutes. So 10 minutes for Mind of God, 10 minutes for Kaanfight. We will then go into 3 5-minute rebuttals for each. And if we have time and there's something that still needs to be sussed out, then we can, you guys can do like maybe a 10-minute dialogue between the two of you. I don't know how deep we'll get into it, but we'll make that call when we get to that point. So right now I'll let you guys kind of introduce yourselves for a couple of minutes and just let people know who you are, where they can find you, and then we'll jump into the actual timed round. So Mind of God, you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for having me. So my channel name is Mind of God. I've been on NonSequitur once before, debating with Fight the Flat Earth on, Flat Earth, and, had a great dialogue with him. This talk today is related to that, and fits into, the book of Revelation. But, the talk that I prepared today is more focused on Bible prophecy, end times, piecing together potentially what's happening in the world and correlating it with this very cryptic book, the very last book of the Bible. My religious background is, and I'll go into this a little bit more in my first slides, but my family is Hindu, and I'm a Christian convert during my undergrad years, and have kind of an on again, off again relationship with Christianity since then. But I'm definitely not, a biblical scholar in terms of, the manuscripts and testing the authenticity of all that. And, if the conversation goes to there, I'll probably learn more than I'll be able to offer. But I do consider myself a very practical person, and I like to see what's going on in the world and, and see if there's a narrative for that, and potentially in the Bible, and in particular, the book of Revelation.
Okay. And Kaanfight?
Hello, I'm Kaanfight. You can call me Kaan, Danny, anything. I'm trying to start up a YouTube channel at the moment. I've been trying to doing some stuff on. My major focus is on history. I want to start a series. I've been working on a couple videos called Crackpot Design, which is all about kind of weird, interesting, not starting with military vehicles, but also just weird, interesting, out of the box designs, and how they influence each other, and how they influence kind of war, and how they influence society and kind of in general, and kind of going on from there, just as a fun thing. I'm a history major at FSU. I am an atheist. I used to be ex-Catholic, and my channel right now is just kind of like a dumpster fire. I have like one video on war crimes against Poland. The other one is me going into a Cutco interview as a furry or something. So it's very interesting.
Wait a minute. Look, I used to. This is a funny story. I actually, at one time when I was in college, when I first started college, I actually sold Cutco for like a week. I went through all of the training, where they give you that knife with the edges, and you have to cut through the rope and do the demonstrations or whatever. And I went to one demonstration, and I was so like uncomfortable. I couldn't do it anymore. I could not.
The funniest thing is, those are good knives. Those are Hinkle knives.
They are very good
knives.
That's the problem. Is that they're good knives, but Cutco is like a really shitty company, so I went in there and just literally just fucked with them for like an hour, and it's a pretty entertaining video. People liked it, but if you like that kind of stuff, I want to just trying to grow my stuff and trying to do whatever I like. It's kind of weird, awesome. But it's fun.
Cutco, that's crazy. They are good knives, though. They're really good knives, and it really did cut through the rope. There's no trick to it. No trick.
They're okay. Sharp.
All right, so let's go ahead and start. Mind of God, do you want you have to let us know when you want your slides up, because they're going to go up full screen. So
That
you
would
just
be
kind of
great.
have to
Yeah.
let us know. You want to start about now, or do you want to start without them
If we
first?
can go now, I'll go through the intro and then my first point that will cover the 10 minutes, and then I'll, if we're okay with that. So
Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
if we can throw up the title slide, that would be great.
sure. And
Okay.
Dave, I can't see the timer, so you'll have to keep it. You'll hear the hallelujah sign when you've reached your time. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that from last night. That was awesome. Praise God.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. So I just I titled this talk "Quick Tour of the Book of Revelation," and it will be quick just because the book is very, very layered, very cryptic in certain places. In my opinion, on purpose. And I'm not someone who claims to have full knowledge of the entire book, 20 some chapters, but I will give you my perspective on, in many ways, how it was brought very much in the forefront. You know, I remember reading it as a Christian in my earlier years, in my late teens, and you know, I just basically thought it was like gibberish. And then and I'll walk you through the sequence of events that took me to the point where I feel like it could actually be describing our reality right now, and in particular here in America for those that live here. So for those numerology buffs, shout out to RV. It is the 66th book of the Bible if you do not include the Apocrypha, which I actually do believe is canon. But you know, that number will come up again in this presentation. And if you don't mind going to the next slide, and my channel there is the Mind of God. Thank you. So just a very quick, background on who I am, is just from a personal perspective, my family is Hindu, pretty much everybody. But I became a Christian, and I put that in quotes, and we can go into that more in 2000 in undergrad. My sort of Christian environment, I guess, that fostered this conversion was being a member of Campus Crusade for Christ in undergrad for my first year, and then kind of got busy with school, to be honest. And then I did kind of reinvigorate my faith when I went to Rice, and then I was member of the grad fellowship for 4 years, and then I became the president from 2006 2007. That's not to boast, but it's mostly just to understand that I have underpinnings and roots in evangelical Christianity, which is practiced, you know, obviously very heavily in a city like Houston, Texas, which is where I am. And you know, I did Bible studies. We had a Christian professor lecture series, which at that time I never really understood. Like, what's the big deal? Like, why are Christian professors, you know, so kind of shy about, you know, sharing their faith? And I didn't understand the bigger debate that's happening of religion and science, and how they, in some cases, for many people, they don't jive. And to me, flat Earth is another good platform for that kind of debate. But you know, we had professors from Rice come and, you know, share their faith, and a couple of them are pretty famous. We did community outreach events. I went through a phase where and I mentioned this when I was here on NonSequitur last time, where I just honestly, I just got tired of religion, to be totally honest. I just found it kind of useless, and the people kind of irritating, especially in the Christian circle. So I wrote an ebook called "I Know Why a Lot of Christians Are Annoying." I kind of picked apart evangelical Christian theology, and which a lot of Protestants subscribe to. And I also wrote another book called Jesus Christ, who I felt was the greatest pickup artist of all time. And that went into me, you know, trying to view Jesus in a very different way, through the laws of attraction, and him trying to connect with people on a personal level. So I've been, you know, members of churches in the past, you know, in London and here in Houston. And I actually don't know how to swim, but I survived a water baptism in 2005. And if there's any question I can't answer, I will direct people directly to God. And I do have some background in apologetics, being in a relationship with a girl who is involved with Rabbi Zacharias' ministry. And Norman Geisler is also a very famous Christian apologist. So not that I, you know all the stuff that they do, but I'm kind of familiar with their world. So if we can go to the next slide, this is kind of the structure of the talk. that I'm planning to give. And so there's basically 5 major points, and it's very much chronological, that literally brought me here to this debate, and to some of the things that I believe to be true, and that I believe may happen shortly, in particular relevant to the people here in America. But the first and foremost, the thing that I started learning, this is around like 2013, 14, I started kind of looking into like financial markets and the economy, and starting to see certain things that, didn't make sense, and didn't seem right, to be totally honest, and that didn't seem fair with the way things were happening with our money system and so on. And so once you do that, naturally the Jews get blamed, and I say that kind of half jokingly, and I don't want to make this a Jew bashing talk, but I just have to give my narrative. And once a person starts looking into that, obviously you will come across potentially very extreme views. And I started looking into all of it, really, just because my mind was very open. And I came across, in particular, a couple lectures by Louis Farrakhan, who's obviously a very controversial figure in the Nation of Islam, and he's very, very outspoken about the Jewish people. And so he refers to them. He referred to them in a particular lecture that I remember vividly, by quoting the Book of Revelation, and I will explain that further. And so I want to talk about who I feel the real Jews of the Bible are. I will then go into reincarnation, which I believe is an extremely important topic that is very difficult to understand. The Bible is very difficult to understand anyway, but without reincarnation and understanding how it's a necessary tool to prepare those that God is conditioning for the kingdom of heaven, it becomes really impossible to make sense of the Bible, in my opinion. I will go into then Mystery Babylon, which is a place that is described in the Book of Revelation, and it's given 2 chapters, which is a pretty big chunk of a book. And it's, in my opinion, details a place, that my feet are set on right now in America. And then, so in order for the end times to take place, I feel that there is this notion of a one world government that needs to be established, because that will be the mechanism for the end times narrative to be orchestrated. And finally, that one world government will be implementing something called the Mark of the Beast. And I will touch on that in summary. So I'm not sure actually how much time I have.
Dave, Dave, can you tell us how much time he has left?
Oh, okay. So I'll yield that time if you don't mind. I can go into my points in my other sessions, but that's kind of my preamble for the talk.
Okay, we'll switch over now and go to Kaanfight. And same with you. Do you want to go ahead and start with your slides full screen?
Yeah. Do my slides full screen.
Okay. And
All
whenever
right.
you're ready.
So, well, this is just the introduction side. Basically, what I'm going to be talking about is apocalypse and apocalypticism in reference to Revelation. So, kind of how Revelation is, how it was perceived in ancient times, as well as how it is perceived in this time, the context in which it was written, and the context in which it is received now. Can we go to the next slide? So what is apocalypticism? This is kind of the point of my talk. What is apocalypticism? What does it have to do with Revelation? What is the context of the writing of Revelation? Does that the most important thing is, does that context transfer through to today? A lot of people say it does. I believe that when the writers of whoever wrote Revelation wrote it, more than likely did not envision something as America coming about, and they weren't writing about America in a certain sense, like my opponent was saying, but they were writing about Rome and their grip on Judean culture and kind of the Jewish people in the area. Who wrote it? We don't really know. So I'll just answer that one right now. Now, why is it incorrect? I'll go into kind of some of the thoughts of it, that part is relatively simple. And now, is it dangerous? How can this ideology harm people? That's one of the major points I wanted to touch on. This ideology, a lot of people like to say, oh, well, people can believe this because it doesn't harm anyone, but this ideology can harm people. It can be used to manipulate people, and I will show you exactly why. Next slide, please. All right, who am I? I'm Kaanfight, history major, FSU, former Catholic. I took one Intro to New Testament class, so most of my information is going to be gleaned from that and some personal research. I just wanted to say, if you are going to FSU, take that class. That class is great. I am not an expert on the subject. I like to shitpost. I'm just some dude online. I have no real accolades. I talked about crackpot design earlier. That's just try to get myself off my ass so I can actually fucking do stuff. So I apologize for swearing. I don't know. I don't care. All right, next slide.
You can guess.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad.
Welcome, son.
All right. All right, so what is apocalypticism? So this is my definition I'm going to be using. So apocalypticism is any belief that the end of humanity, the world, or any other tragedy is near, and it's mostly coming from a religious context. You've always heard the idea of the end is nigh, the guy standing on the street corner being like, oh, I was vindicated when the apocalypse happened, and that this has been happening for over 2,000 years. And it tends to hint on some kind of prophecy or presupposition of destruction. We see this with the 2012 idea of the Mayan calendar, various other cult-like religions, and then also Christianity kind of takes on this apocalyptic viewpoint. And almost certainly it comes from the idea of Jesus being a sort of Jewish apocalypticist in the early first century. Can we go to the next slide to explain that part? So, Revelation to John. So, the first manuscript was written as early as 64 BC, updated as 84 BC. That's very crucial because of the events between these two periods really influenced how it was written. We don't know who wrote it. Traditionally, it's considered to be John who wrote it, but that's dubious and that's heavily debated. So, let's see. It's widely considered a critique of Roman culture and or a call to action against Rome for occupying Judea. This was one of the major things that we've seen in a long time. The people of Judea do not like to be occupied. There's this idea of they're very independent. They're very, especially at this point in the early first century, they were very sick of Roman rule and they saw it as basically imperialism. So we have the beast with 7 heads, of course, goes on the 7 hills of Rome. Mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is mentioned several times, but I think it's more of it's not literal. It's a pun on Roman standard coinage because, you have the idea of a mark can sometimes refer to a coin, plus you have the mark on the face being the face of whatever emperor at the time. And it was really a criticism of Rome's suppression of the peoples under its rule by standardizing currency. That was one of the major things. It was that and taxation that really led to the events I'm going to talk about a little bit later. His number is 666. A lot of scholars say that points to Nero pretty much unanimously. I don't know exactly why there was. It has something to do with the math and how Nero's name is spelled in Greek. I can't tell you why. I tried to look it up for this, but I could not. I'm not that well versed in why it is, but just know that a lot of biblical scholars will say that it points to Nero. And then it goes against a lot of pro-Gentile, anti-Jewish, Pauline narrative of the Gospels, Mark in particular. So Mark has this really interesting, most of the Gospels and the New Testament in general has this really interesting idea of going against Judaism and being more pro-Gentile, as Paul was. Again, Paul talks about this in a couple of his epistles where he talks about the dichotomy between the church abroad and the church in Jerusalem. So there's that dichotomy of who is right. Should we allow Gentiles into this religion? Because keep in mind, at this point in time, the church really did not the church. I use the term church very closely because it was mostly a sect of Judaism, and it is not really the church as we know it today. That doesn't come around until about the 2nd century, but there's a lot of conflict, and we can see that, the Pauline theocracy kind of triumphed in that, and that's why Revelation to John is so interesting, is because it's pretty well opposed to Pauline theocracy, at least in my opinion. Now, this is debated, and we can talk about that in detail. R and Raw can probably correct me on a lot of stuff I get wrong here. I am fine with that. I am not an expert. I just enjoy this stuff. Can we go to the next slide? Oop. All right, so what was happening in Judea at the time? Can I get a time check, by the way? 2 minutes?
Yeah, Dave, can you let him know?
All right. So what was going on in the time of Judea at the time of writing? You have the Jewish uprising against Rome. That was the biggest thing. So like I said before, those dates 64 to about 84. This is why I believe it was part of a call to action almost against Rome, because it was written a couple of years before the start of violence. And it was mostly over taxation and the Roman imperialism over Judea, and the Jewish believe that their right to governance, I should say. It resulted in the Temple of 70 CE, and that is very crucial because we see as the book of Revelation goes on, I don't believe that it was a prophecy of apocalyptic times being later. Everyone thought they were living in the apocalypse now. And the biggest, most religious site in all of Judea being burned to the ground is pretty apocalyptic. Pretty much, and one of the reasons why we have most of the religious texts today rely on Pauline epistles and the church in Jerusalem was more fundamentally fundamentalist Jewish organization, and then we have Paul, who really didn't meet Jesus and really butted heads with Peter over how the church should be run, going out and teaching the Gentiles, because it was always a Jews first, Gentiles later. And today, we see a lot of the apologetics for including the Gentiles in this. One of the major reasons why I say that the rest of the Bible is very pro-Roman is because you have, especially in Mark, you have the idea of the followers of Christ, the Jews, do not accept Jesus, but yet the centurion at the end of Jesus's life, as well as in Acts, you have another centurion who wanted to become part of the church but was not circumcised. So that's the idea of the butting heads between this new budding religion, quote unquote. It was really more of the cult of the Nazarenes versus, Paul, because just everyone hates Paul for some reason. And because Paul was not in Jerusalem at this time, he was killed by the Romans earlier than this, but because of a lot of his texts were more in Anatolia and in Greece, they survive, and that's what the church is based on today.
Okay. All right. Now we will put 5 minutes on the clock and start the rebuttal rounds, and we will go back to the mind of God. I'll wait till there we go. Now, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So I also want to caveat this with please do not shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what got me here. This is not I don't have a personal beef with Jewish people, and even though I'm going to go into things related to them, I do believe some of them are the actual biblical Jews. We just do not have the ancestry to know it precisely, and that has spiritual implications, which I'll go into. But if we can go to the very next slide after this one. Okay, so first, very important, like a necessity for the book of Revelation to manifest is that God's people would need to be in a place where they need rescuing. That's the book of Revelation speaks of a lot of destruction, very, very true, but it also speaks of a rescuing happening happening, not just there, but it will happen worldwide, but in a concentration in a place called Mystery Babylon. And then so we need to understand, first off, if the God's people, these quote unquote Israelites, do not exist to this day, then the book of Revelation cannot be fulfilled. That's just very, very clear. It makes a very clear point that the 12 tribes will exist, and a special number of them, 144,000, which are God's chosen, them and others will be saved. And that is the true definition of what the Bible means about salvation. But so again, I just caveat this with this is not a Jewish bashing thing. But so the Jewish people today in Israel are not the my position is that they are not the biblical Jews, or a majority of them. First, a lot of them will not understand what Jew means. To be totally honest, if you ask them, it is a Jew is a person that is from the tribe of Judah, and Judah is a person, is a man, and he is one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so if you look at Abraham's offspring, he had Isaac, who had Jacob, and then he had 12 sons, and one of the sons' name is Judah. And so those are the 12 tribes. If a person who is an offspring of that would be considered a Jew, and then who we call Jesus Christ comes from that lineage. So that's why we refer to him as a Jew, even though I do believe in the virgin birth. His mother is from that lineage. But so we have to get very clear about what it means to be a Jew, and that's a very important thing. And so Jew people, just by the definition, the name itself, Jewish, they're saying that they're a type of Jew, and they are actually converts. If we can go to the next slide, I'll go into that a little bit deeper. So now we're on a hunt for who the real Jews are, because if they do not exist, then the end times cannot manifest. And so, to me, again, this is not, I'm not out to play the race card too heavily, but this is very important to understand the entire Bible, not just the book of Revelation. But broadly speaking, the real Jews of the Bible are dark-skinned people. And that's shown in many places in the Bible. And then there are people outside who will confirm that as well. So I've put examples there. I don't necessarily think it's important to go through them, but one quote that I found interesting that's used quite often in this type of apologetics is that the Prime Minister of Egypt, former Prime Minister Gamal Abdel Nasser, said, "The Jews will never be able to live in peace because they left their black and came back white." And so Jesus is black. I just put 2 verses there to support that. He's described as having woolly hair and feet undefined brass. Moses was black based on an interaction in Exodus, where he puts his hand in his bosom and it comes out white or leprous, and then he puts it back and then it comes back his natural skin color. So it's inferring that he's dark skinned. There are early church members who are actually referred to as Niger, or what we would call, black to this day in a derogatory way. Job was black. He explicitly stated that, and so was King Solomon. So the prophets, the Old Testament, and Jesus himself are dark-skinned people, and that's an important fact to be able to figure out who the Jews are potentially today. This is what got me kind of along this trail was the modern day people in Israel, to me, do not fit a righteous and holy people. And this is not a shot to any individual person who's Jewish, but their works do not convey to me any form of righteousness really at all. So we can go into that if we need to, but there's also literature supporting that they were involved in the financing aspects of the transatlantic slave trade. So the ancestry test is, sorry, it's time.
Good. All right, so we'll put reset the clock. And Kaanfight, whenever you're set, you can respond to Man of God. Kaanfight.
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. I apologize. I was just saying, can we put up my slideshow for 1 second? I only have 2 more slides, and then I can get into, and it really deals with, it's going to deal with the with what Mind of God's points are. So let's get back on track to the should be slide number 7 we should be on. There we go. All right, so neo-apocalypticism. So let's go forward 2,000 years, and everyone and their mother at this point has basically attempted to say whatever person in government is the Antichrist. You have Napoleon, Stalin, and whatever government in power is like Babylon. So you have the United States, Great Britain, and a lot of different things. This is compared to a lot. The biggest argument against this ideology is just that it's been 2,000 years, and even Paul said he wouldn't think that in his lifetime he would see he thought that in his lifetime the apocalypse would happen and Jesus would come back. Clearly that did not happen, and like none of the apocalyptic prophecy has ever come true, even though that there has been many made, and you can go back to Nostradamus, and you always find the trope of the people in 2012 being like, oh yeah, the Mayan calendar. Well, we got the date wrong, and it's tomorrow. It doesn't make any sense, and it's just kind of a farce. Can we go to the next slide? All right, so now we have kind of why it's dangerous. One of the biggest problems is that it's very easily manipulated to shoot whatever agenda you want. You can say, like this book, The Rise of Babylon, and he's talking about the end times with Saddam Hussein, and basically using that to justify the invasion of Iraq. This was found out to be not true, and also was deeply destabilized the Middle East and deeply hurt our modern times. Another point of this is the evangelical Christian voters, at least in America, is their unwavering support of Israel. Mind of God actually holds this belief when he says that we must have the Jews in control of Israel. There is no real evidence to say that in Revelation. I'm not too familiar with what he's trying to point out there, but it's that willful ignorance or outright condemnation of Israeli human rights or abuses, or just outright condemnation of them in the name of prophecy. And then you also see the neoconservative use religion, and particularly fundamentalist Christianity in America, to say whatever they want. Right now it's against Iran, and currently Iran and like North Korea. And then you can also say mostly Iran because of Iran is Islamic. And then the prophecy conveniently suits whatever conservative U.S. foreign policy wants, such as the invasion of Iraq and, Syria. Assad is actually the Antichrist now. We got it wrong. It wasn't Saddam. So you can basically insert anyone you want into the role of Antichrist and just justify whatever you want to do. And it just completely ignores the context in which the Bible was written and its intended audience, which is to say Jews and people living in the first century under Roman occupation, not people living in this time. So I just also wanted to go into a couple of Mind of God's points. For one, please don't use the King James Bible, for the love of God. The reason why is that the King James Bible is really flawed, and that a lot of it's made from old manuscripts that were found to be kind of faulty because of kind of how the writing was worked, but also just the language is particularly fluffed up because of like you said in some of your quotes, it was like they use f and if a lot, and it just is obnoxious because the original Greek is already supposed to be kind of poetic and kind of sing-songy a little bit, and the original Greek is great, but you don't need to add all this other stuff. It's like trying to read from like it's like trying to cite Romeo and Juliet, but you're using the emoji version of it. Like, don't do that. It's just wrong. And then also there's this weird thing. I think I'll get to this in my next part, but Nasser. I don't know why you quoted Nasser for all of this, but we'll get to that. I concede my time.
The whole 1 second you conceded. All right. Go back to Mind of God.
Yeah, sorry. If you don't mind going back to that same slide, I'll just quickly wrap it up. Yeah, so the last 2 points quickly. There's a video on my channel if anyone wants to check it out. There's a person who reaffirms that what I believe, and I'll get into that the Jews are dark skinned, and the current people in Israel are not the biblical Israelites. And so, just one example, there quite a few of these Jewish people are Ashkenazi Jews, and I'll explain in the next slide what their potential lineage goes back to. And they are not Semitic is a term that's used to describe people who are an offspring of Shem, which is one of 3 sons of Noah. So when someone says they're Semitic, they're kind of referring to them as being kind of Shemitic people. And I'll explain that the Ashkenazi lineage does not fall from Shem, and so they are not of the proper lineage to be Israelites. And so the last thing, this is kind of a rehash of my points earlier, that there are Jewish people right now who are kind of calling out other Jewish people against Zionism and then their oppression of the Palestinian people. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll quickly just show you pictorially what I meant by the ancestry test. So there's these, if one believes the flood, occurred and then Noah and his 3 sons survived it, this is their offspring. And so you can see Ashkenaz is a son of Gomer, who's a son of Japheth. And so Gomer and Magog, that's a human, but those people, if you look up kind of the history, believed to have settled kind of in the area of modern day Turkey, as well as Ashkenazi Jews are typically Russian, Ukrainian, Polish in that part of the world as well. And so if we can go to the next slide. The issue with that is that the modern day the Jews would have to be from Abraham's lineage, and so an Israelite is like I said in the previous slide, 12 sons of Jacob, and so Jacob was renamed to Israel in Genesis 32:28. So to my opponent's point in his last slide was also that Israel is obviously the country that we see today, but in the Bible, in many places, it's referring to the people first, not the geographic location. And so if we go to the next slide, I'll get into more detail about the characteristics of the modern day Jews. So this is Bible prophecy. This is what the Jews would be described as and their condition. Deuteronomy 28:68 says that God will send them into slavery. So the Bible is very much pro-slavery, and God is the one architecting it. And he is doing this to them for his purpose. So they would have gone into slavery on ships. They are dark-skinned, like I mentioned earlier. The female Jews will be cursed with a form of baldness, according to Isaiah. Many will reside in this place called Mystery Babylon in the end times, according to Revelation 18:4, and I'll go into that in more detail. They will be poor, very poor, dependent on others completely. Again, part of the curses in Deuteronomy 28:48. And they will be in astonishment. Like, there is poverty, and there's poverty everywhere. I was born in India, and I've seen poverty with my own eyes. But the Bible kind of describes them in more of like an embarrassed state. So God is putting kind of the hammer down, and He's punishing them in a particular way. And so my belief is that the true Jews, many of them are the so-called Negroes here in America. We can go to the next slide. So, in my opinion, to understand the Bible in general, because it is very strange to, and I'll be very upfront about that. And I watched the lecture last night with Aaron, and I was nodding my head more than I was shaking it. That there is a lot of really strange things in the Bible. To me, it's very difficult to understand unless you understand that we have lived past lives. Reincarnation is very much biblical. I'll quote John the Baptist as Elijah. Jesus refers to John the Baptist as Elijah, and he prefaces that with if you're able to understand it. So he knows that not everybody will receive that statement, that he calls John the Baptist Elijah. And so I feel that Elijah's spirit was reincarnated in John the Baptist to prepare the way for Jesus Christ. And so another verse that in Revelation talks about those who pierced him, who actually, physically killed him on the cross, they will see him again. So their spirits will be reincarnated, and they exist, I believe, in our generation right now. In my opinion, like, this is a very, standard biblical fact that Jesus Christ died and rose again and reappeared to his disciples in a new body. And so that is a form of reincarnation. And there's an example of spirits entering into pigs. And so those spirits were in one body and then went into pigs, the form of reincarnation.
Okay. All right. We'll go with you just went your second round, right? Man of God?
Yes, sir.
That was your second 5 minute. Okay. So this is the last 5 minutes, and then we'll open it up with a discussion between the two of you where you can go back and forth and ask each other questions. So that final 5 minutes, whenever you're ready, Kaanfight.
All right. So I talked a little bit about I like briefly mentioned Nasser at the end of my text. I don't know why you're quoting him as a source for this idea that the Jews are black. I don't understand this, because Nasser, when he was saying that, you're taking a lot of these quotes out of context, and I feel like this is one of the major ones, because you don't understand why Nasser is saying that. He's not saying that because he was trying to be some historian. Literally what Nasser was doing was he saw Israel he was trying to delegitimize the Israeli state, because he saw Israel as in the antithesis to his idea of pan-Arabism and his joining of Syria and all the Arab countries into one giant pan-Arab union. So it was in his best interest to start. He basically is just shit-talking Israel at this point. He doesn't actually believe that, I don't think. And even if he did actually believe that, he's not an authority at all. He doesn't know any better than we do. And that's one of the biggest things, is that a lot of you pointed out these genealogies. I don't know where you're getting these from. Much of the genealogy, at least in Matthew, they work it from reverse, because the Jews did not keep that great of records, and neither did the Romans. That's one of the major things that people talk about Rome, is like, oh, they kept great records. They kept okay records, but it was better than none at all. The Jewish people always had none at all. So why would they be tracking this poor carpenter, his entire life story and all the way back? Basically, it was, most people started out with the idea of, okay, Jesus we got to link him to David somehow. And then they just kind of justified that way through a lot of different things. I don't think that a lot of that is like actually canonical and it's actually true for whatever reason. You also just didn't talk on like any of the points that I was making about how, if you're talking about the end times and the Jews coming to Israel, why hasn't it happened yet? What needs to happen? You're saying that you want all Jews, we need the real Jews back in Israel to do it, and the real Jews are black people, but like, and some of your points about how the Jews were black, it was like, Job was black because he had boils and his flesh was literally rotting away. He wasn't black because he was he wasn't black because he was a black man. There's not really that much evidence to say that Ashkenazi Jews are somehow less Jewish than other Jews. And I understand what you're trying to do and what the point you're kind of trying to make, because there is this divide within Israel, in Israeli politics, that we see of Ashkenazi Jews and, for instance, Yemeni Jews, where Ashkenazi Jews like to say that they are above other ones. That's kind of what was happening in the 50s, post-World War II, and with the creation of the Jewish state. So there is like a hint of truth there, because the Jews aren't monolithic. The Jews aren't a monolithic race. And that's one of the biggest things, is that also they disperse. So I don't think that there's any evidence to say that they aren't descended from the original inhabitants in the original 12 tribes of Israel. I don't know. The genealogies kind of are, there's nothing really to say that those genealogies are true. And you're working backwards from prophecy. This is something that even the people in the Bible did. I know there's one quote, I can't remember the exact one, but basically it was talking about how it was a quote from Isaiah, and it was saying, this prophesies Jesus' return. But when you go back and read Isaiah, it's just talking about Elijah, I believe. I believe it was Elijah that they were talking about. Or, yeah, I think it was Elijah. I might be screwing. I think I'm screwing that up. But you're making prophecy out of nothing. You're making prophecy out of not really anything substantial. You're not making prophecy out of, hey, in 2 days from now, the sky's going to fall. And then you can bank on that, because you have to keep it vague in order to keep this narrative up. You have to keep it vague in order to not look like a fraud, because that's the whole point. It's just that you're keeping it so vague, and you're not really making specific claims, where it's hard for me to even attack it sometimes, because it's like, well, it's all very iffy. And that's my time.
Okay. We'll put up 15 minutes now for you guys to have an open dialogue back and forth to each other. Since you just went Kaanfight, we'll let Mind of God start off with if he has a question for you or he wants to comment on something that you said during his time.
Yeah,
so Mind of God, whenever you're.
Okay. Thanks a lot. So I get the confusion, and trust me, I was in that boat for many years. The whole point of this is to redirect, or just to put a new idea out there, that potentially that whole narrative of the end times being focused in the land of Israel is God distracting people who are not given insight about what's really going to happen in the end times. And the end times are going to be focused actually in America, because America is Mystery Babylon, because that is where the Jews, who I feel are the Jews today, will be living. And so all that stuff in the Middle East, I'm not saying it's not important and people's lives are not affected by it, but when you read the word Israel in the Bible, don't immediately think of the nation that exists today, and don't automatically think of Jewish people, because in my opinion, many of them are not the biblical Jews. I cannot say all of them, obviously, because I don't have the records, and I can't even say all the so-called Negroes are the true Jews. We can't say that either. But
Did you just say? I mean, this is kind of. I don't understand why the Jews have to be black people. Why do they have to be African Americans? Why do they have to be sub-Saharan Africans? I don't understand this fixation on the Jewish people. The real Jewish people are actually African Americans, and even if they were, let's say that the Jews were African Americans, why would apocalypse take place in America when there's a higher concentration of people with dark skin in sub-Saharan Africa? Why not there? Why is God doing America? Is America somehow more important? Where in Revelation does it say implicitly and specifically America? Because right now, all things point to Rome. It's all going back to Rome. It's not going back to America. It's not going back to whatever insert nation here. It doesn't seem to make sense. Your arguments are kind of incoherent.
Here, check this out. So this is the description. I tried to summarize the 2 chapters. This is what Babylon is described as, and you tell me what country it would fit now. So the kings of the earth have fornicated with this country to gain their wealth. It is described as a mother of harlots and abominations. It sits upon many waters, military perspective. It's a melting pot of nationalities. It's given its power by the European Union. The people will say, I will never see sorrow.
Wait, where in Revelation does it say that it was empowered by the Soviet Union? I'm sorry for interrupting you, but...
No, I said European Union. It's rising up. We can go into that if you want, but that's Revelation 17:12. It prophesies that it'll be burned by ICBMs, which you see in the news right now. North Korea and all these countries are saying, they're going to nuke us and all that stuff. It's going to be the main consumer of goods worldwide, which I think is the most powerful verse that describes it as modern day America. The merchants will wail and moan, saying, just quickly, 3 more. Merchants will wail and moan after it's nuked, saying, who's going to buy our stuff? It's the source of the music worldwide, and it's a place where much of the killing is orchestrated worldwide. So that to me is I mean, if one were to say that the end times are now, which obviously is a big if because I don't know that, this would have to be America.
Well, I mean, if the end times were now, you could just as easily say, you could just as easily say that's China due to different ethnic peoples there, and basically any country. But my point is that how is that implicitly implying America? You can very obviously say that about Rome, because Rome was one of the first very multi-ethnic communities in that area. Well, besides Alexander the Great's conquests and some of his states, but Rome was the most successful one. And you have this whole idea of, that was one of the major things about Rome, is that they had so many kingdoms and so many people under them that they were truly multinational. I think that's what they're talking about. And that's what they're talking about where all the music comes from. And my biggest thing is also, where on earth why on earth would these people from the first century not the first century BC, first century AD, why on earth would they be implicating, do you think that they had a vision of America right now? Do you think God was trying to somehow communicate through them? Why not just say, hey, in the end times, we're all going to have McDonald's, and like there's going to be McDonald's everywhere, and we're going to like capitalism, baby. That's going to be the end times. And the quote, when you're talking about ICBMs, he's talking about unholy fire. Literally, that's been as old as time. Fire has been a destructive force that consumes everything since forever. I can just say, I want to cast you into the fire because I want to destroy you completely. That's what he's saying about. That's why I think it's a call to action, because he's trying to get the people of Judea to call to action and to bring down the Roman Empire and the Roman imperialism of the Jewish people in the Judea.
Not to interrupt, but I would say the strongest point that is not true is just that it makes a big focus on that this place will be the one that's consuming a majority of the goods that are produced, and that is just very obvious, and it's mentioned.
But how did Rome not consume the majority of the goods? You have this whole idea of, this is where consumerism comes from almost. You could talk about how lavish Herod was, Herod especially, because he was one of the most hated people of that time, and he was known for being extremely lavish and doing all these kinds of things, almost to a point where you can parody him for. He's almost a self-parody in some respects. Of course. But
check this out. So it would not fulfill the prophecies because that was not burned and never inhabited again, which is what Mystery Babylon is.
They did burn down the fields of Judea. They burned down the people's crops. They burned down the temple. It was never inhabited by God again. That's what he's talking about. The Romans went in and killed everyone.
So here's another, my last point is that not just this, but it also has to be coupled with the mark of the beast. And so without that as well, we're not in the end times. And that has definitely not happened in human history, where people have been tagged and then use that tag to restrict them from commerce. So that was my final point. But
you think that's a literal tag when he's talking about commerce? Do you think that's a literal tag, or is he talking about people that use Roman currency because we don't like the Romans taxing the Romans taxing us? Why does that specifically refer to an actual mark on someone rather than a literary device to show corruption?
So check this out. I'll be like absolutely 100% honest. I obviously am here telling you that this is possible. Do I know that this is going to happen? Absolutely not. Do I honestly find it hard to believe? Yes, that it's going to happen. But I'm just here. I'm the messenger. I'm telling you that this is plausible because the technology is available, and I've worked in engineering. I understand the concept of a chip and the cryptos and all that stuff. So I'm not here to raise money or do anything. I'm strictly saying, because Christians have been, in my opinion, extremely useless throughout human history. Just if this happens, maybe remember this dialogue and think, I'm not telling you what to do or whatever.
If this happens, I'm going to go think back and be like, man.
It's just like, think about it, and it's like, I think you and I would both agree, and I have a feeling a lot of people on this channel would agree, that the government forcing anybody to do anything, forget about the commerce part or restricting from commerce and the mark of the beast and all that. This prophecy says that all governments worldwide are going to force people to do something. Whether that to me is, are you
saying that are you like an anarcho-capitalist where it's like, oh man, the government's oppressing my right to not just go out and just kill people? Is that your point?
No,
what's your point?
I'm telling you that the Bible is saying that the governments are going to be in coordination and require everybody worldwide to take a mark And to me, you don't have to be religious or anything to know that that is not
Our
good.
government can't even work together to pass a law. Like how are we going to have one world government if people
This is the point I just made. This is the point I just made a few seconds ago. I find this hard to believe, but to be totally honest, flat Earth and other things reaffirm to us that there is coordination worldwide. And I don't want this to be a flat Earth debate, but all that stuff, you know, to me, these are like things that have led me down this trail. That it is possible that this could happen because the prophecy is very specific. It cannot be like one country. It can't be
just
one
because
company
it's possible
or one city.
Does not mean that it's going to happen. I could say,
Dude,
tomorrow
that's
it's
cool.
possible
That's
that
fine.
it's possible tomorrow that like I could get nuked. But like, does that mean it's going to happen? Does that mean it's going to happen tomorrow?
True. And if it doesn't happen, dude, I will come back on the show and publicly apologize for wasting people's time. I'm not here to like waste people's time, but I honestly sympathize in a lot of ways with the dialogue on this channel that Christians have been basically useless, honestly, and myself included throughout human history, really just causing strife and being useless. But if this prophecy ends up being true and then there's implications for taking it, and you haven't actually been warned in a fair way, just sober.
So what you're saying is you're so smart and you know much better than all of us here that there is going to be an end times, and you're just trying to flaunt that around, saying, "I told you so." You're the crier on the street corner, is what you're saying.
Well, I would say that I would be faced with that same decision if I'm on the earth at that time. So I'm not in a separate boat than anybody else. So I would be faced with that decision.
But what if you're wrong? What if you're just trying to...
Well, hey, no, I said, if it doesn't happen, if the chip doesn't come out or it comes out and it's voluntary, I'm not even kidding. I will come back on the show and apologize for wasting.
But people said like the mark of the beast was like QR codes. Like that was a big thing back in the 90s, and that turned out to be just a load of BS. And my point is that you can shift the goalposts all you want. It's just because it's possible doesn't mean it's going to happen. I could say, well, anything is possible. Therefore, anything will happen. Mm-hmm. Got him.
But check this out. I want all of us to be actually scholarly about this verse and hold Christians accountable because it's very specific.
But you're not being scholarly about this. I'm trying to.
Well, no, I'm saying. Check this out. This verse, Revelation 13, 16, 18, is very bold. And in my opinion, I'm all about either let's get rid of the Bible soon or let's see that it's correct. Like, I don't want this, to me, this religion, all of them are just like wasting time.
It's not even referring to like QR codes. If they said mark of the beast, they'd be like, hey, there'd be an identification tag in each individual person. The writers of the Bible, it's not like God. Is your argument that God told them to write this down and therefore they wrote it down rather than like them actually like trying to write a narrative and trying to synthesize what was going on in the region as well as criticize the people in power?
No, it's God. I agree with the first part. God is doing this for sure, and I do not blame Jewish people or the government or anybody. If someone is doing this, God is doing this, and we don't know why, the full reason, but it's him doing it, and he doesn't want certain people to take it. His children will not take it. So I'm out there telling people if it doesn't happen, I look bad, and I will accept that. I'm used to looking bad, but if it does happen, I think it's fair for us to be out there and tell people, hey, if the government ever does force you to do anything fundamentally, forget about even putting a chip in your hand.
So if the government forces me like to sign up for Social Security or pay my taxes, that's a fundamental violation of my right.
It has to be within your body. It has to be within your body. In the Greek, that word mark is charagma. It has to be physically on your body.
So you're an anti-vax. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm talking about this Revelation 13. I'm not talking about vaccines or anything like that. That's a totally different discussion. I only care about this specific prophecy, and to be honest, I don't care about.
It's not a prophecy, though. It's not a prophecy. It's a point about the critique of Roman government. It's talking about how corrupt everyone was. There's a definitive line in the Bible where you can talk about. There's a heavy fixation on tax men and people who are tax collectors, especially. So
let me read this. You'll agree with me that this is definitely a prophecy. Revelation 13, 16, 18. And he causeth all, very important, both small and great.
I don't agree that it's a prophecy. I've read Revelation 13, 16, 18. I know what you're talking about. It's not a prophecy.
Cool.
I apologize for talking over you, but you keep saying, "Oh, it's a prophecy. It's a prophecy. It's a prophecy." It hasn't happened yet. Show me where it makes A prophecy has to make predictions. Show me where this is making predictions.
It's predicting that all the governments will force people to take this so they cannot buy or sell. That's it.
How is that not alluding to the fact that Rome was trying to get everyone on one currency? How is that not alluding to that fact? Because they're trying to say that you can't use local currency, and that was one of the biggest things that the Jewish people did not like.
It's for the whole world, man. It's not Rome. It's not America. It's not
Rome was the whole world. I mean, do you think that
I'm talking about India, China, Africa, everywhere. Like everywhere.
People knew about India and China, but like
this is a bold prophecy, man. This is huge, dude. It has massive implications. I do not want.
If you lived in the Roman Empire, Rome is your world. I don't understand where you're trying to say, oh, it's not Rome because it talks about the whole world.
It wasn't. If that happened in human history, that would be everywhere. That everybody was restricted from commerce, from taking a chip that would withhold them from their own finances. That can only happen now.
All right. First of all, you're going from a position of the mark of the beast has to be a chip inside of you. It's not that literal. They're talking about very nuanced. It's a nuanced take on taxation. It's not that complicated. Like this is what a lot of biblical scholars will say is that it's all about a critique of Rome. That's pretty much done and dealt with. It's not a prophecy for the end times because the Jewish people believed the end times were then. And so, if you see your entire civilization basically burned to the ground, razed, that's what they did to the temple, that's why they talk about fire, then why wouldn't you think that? This is for, I don't know.
That might be the time.
Yeah,
okay.
Time.
All right. Now we'll let you guys have a couple minutes to make your closing statements. Anything that you wanted to say to wrap things up? And who did we start out for? We started out with Mind of God first, so we'll start out with Kaanfight.
Mind of God, you haven't done anything with any of my points. How are you going to say, how does this prophecy that you claim specifically alludes to America? How does that not specifically in some way vaguely, how does that not reference Rome? How does that not reference Napoleon? How does that not reference the thousands of empires that have come and fall in this time? Because you're on this presupposition that, hey, America is the last empire. I don't think that that's a very healthy way of viewing things. I don't think that is a very solid and logical way of viewing things. You're just saying, oh yeah, the Bible says this, so therefore I can quote mine. Like I said before, I told you about Nasser. You quote mine Nasser. You have no idea who this man is. You have no idea the context in which that was written. And I do, and it has nothing to do with your argument. He's just talking shit because he doesn't like Israel. And you're completely disregarding all context in order to make your point, in order to say you're quote mining, you're cherry picking, and there's no discernible point to it. There's no discernible reason. There's no discernible, even like coherent. Like I'm baffled. I wanted to come on here and like talk about the Bible and stuff, but you're just sitting here saying, "Nah, it's America. It totally refers to America." And I'm saying, how does it not refer to Rome? Because the people at that time who wrote the book know about Rome. They don't know about America. So how does it not refer to Rome? And specifically, the seven-headed beast. How is that not the seven hills of Rome? And it's on the water. Oh, man. Rome is literally has a giant ocean in the middle of it. I don't understand where you're getting this specific point that the end times are now and the end times are upon us. How? You haven't done anything. You've just basically said it's possible, therefore we're all going to die by a nuke tomorrow because the Bible said something vaguely about fire. That's what I've gotten from this.
Okay.
And
sorry.
I will give you that it's a quote mining reverse engineering thing, and I'm very upfront about that. That's the step-by-step process that got me here. For sure, I have not had like an experience, a spiritual encounter, or DMTs or anything like that. So it's purely me just reading and piecing together things. So I confess to that. But if you remember anything about this, and trust me, if you find this hard to believe, I believe it in fairly strong ways, but I also find it hard to believe that the end times, the rapture will occur via UFOs. So if you see a bunch of UFOs in the sky, invisible, like an Independence Day, we're at the end. And if the government ever forces you to put something in your hand, refuse. So that's, and I cannot prove that to you. I cannot eloquently or do anything to convince you of that until it actually happens. So I'm sitting here in life, seeing and waiting to see if it happens. And if it doesn't, I will not cry or be disappointed or whatever. It's just the Bible is not true then, you know. But if it does, I would, you know, implore you to consider some of the things that I've said.
Okay, well, thank you both for coming on. I'm going to pull up super chats right now. We'll knock those out, and then call it a night. Super chats. Does anybody like the new beta, the beta studio? Anybody have any thoughts on those? Steve?
It sucks. I don't like it. It's useless.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
get rid of it. And I've actually told them that too. They asked for my opinion, and I gave it to them. I said it sucks.
Sigfrido Sarabia says, what people do you feel is the modern Levite?
I don't know. There is speculation. If you follow the Hebrew Israelites, they have a view on them being, I believe, the Haitians. But I don't subscribe to knowing individually with anybody with any confidence that they are from that lineage. Just like every religion will have trouble pointing out that, you know, that the popes go back to certain like Peter or something. Like, we don't have the records, and in my opinion, God again did this on purpose. Everything in these days are spiritual. People who are truth-seeking, who are compassionate, who are all these kind of things, to me, ultimately are God's children, or candidates for God's children. And that's, you know, that's just the world that we live in. And even if you were, and the Bible would support this, even if you were from the tribe of Levi or Judah, that doesn't automatically mean that you're in good standing with God. There are other things that have to happen. And I posted a video recently on my channel about who I believe will go to heaven based on the Bible, and it has nothing to do with your tribe. So,
you know,
okay,
if God is doing all this, like, points about, man, I'm trying to deceive you, I'm trying to do all this, is God literally just like Tznich from Warhammer? Because, like, that sounds like God is just literally a chaos god who just decides just to do whatever and doesn't even know where his machinations are going. This just doesn't even sound like God. Just sounds like a really shitty planner, in my opinion. Like, why not just say it? Why is he trying to jinx people? Why is he got to be like such an asshole about it? Just say it. World's got to end at this point. Be ready.
No, it's a valid point, and the stuff that Aaron was bringing out last night, and your issues with the Bible in general, I get it. It is confusing, and it is difficult to pin it down. And the God of the Bible is extremely peculiar. I mean, he puts his own son and dies a grisly death for living a perfect life. That doesn't make sense, you know. And I understand that's strange. And why would God make us exist, and he created us, and we don't know that he exists? That's also strange. But we believe that he's conditioning his children for the kingdom of heaven, and then it will be better than any DMT experience.
Just so you know, it's Aaron. There's no.
I might have screwed that up. I apologize. I was talking fast and I was nervous. Aaron, you can execute me tomorrow. And that's a prophecy.
No, I think it was man of God, not you. It wasn't you. It was man of God.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oops, which is fine. I mean, you know, I said it too. I said it too until actually he corrected me when the first podcast we did, because I called him Aaron, and it's a
biblical name.
And what's funny is he was practicing not calling him he was practicing not calling him Aaron prior to that, and yet the first thing he says, Aaron, and I was
you meet one of your. He's like a hero to me. So you meet one of your heroes, and you.
This is true. True story.
I do want to call him out on him calling Jesus a swindler, which some of his other statements I would agree with that are difficult. But there's no verse that describes Jesus as a swindler at all. That's not true.
I don't think he said that there was a verse that.
He just said that he was in it for the money or something like that. I mean, you don't want to be saying
that's just his take. That's just his take.
That's his hypothesis. He's not saying this verse says
Yeah.
this. He's reading
Okay.
between the lines and saying, all right, what would a Jewish
Yeah.
person at this time who was
Got it.
doing this exact thing, who was going into the temple and whipping people, what was he doing? Oh, he was probably
He's making a comparison between people like Robert Tilton nowadays, the preachers that get up there and they have a feel good message, and it's the underpinning notion is that it's all about money. All right, we got two more. Fredo Serbia says, what does Revelation 3:9 mean when it says, "Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which they say are the Jews"?
Yeah, so that says that that they will worship at the feet, and so basically there is a balance. Anybody, and the Bible also says anybody who takes anybody else in captivity will be put in captivity. And so to me, there's a balance that doesn't just necessarily mean physical captivity. If I put someone in emotional captivity, financial captivity, any kind of captivity, I will not go unpunished for that, either here on earth or in the next life. And so there is a balance. And so anybody who has sent millions of Negroes across the transatlantic and enslaved them, there was obviously a recompense for that. And that's what Revelation 3:9 is talking about.
Why are you saying Negro? Is this 1955? Like, I don't understand.
Oh wait! Did you say that? I didn't even catch that. Did you really?
Yeah, he said that twice in this debate. I didn't call him out earlier because
mind of God, no, you can't. You can't do that.
The terms Negroid and Mongoloid are not really. I mean, they have no real meaning any longer. Matter of fact, Mongoloid is not a thing that is even. It doesn't even make sense.
If I say
I don't know why you're using that
Israel.
specific word either. It makes no sense.
I believe them to be the Jews. I believe them. And Kyle, you and not to
So you're
not to
going to
pick on
call
you,
them a derogatory term? Like that's like
no, but
semi-racist.
You can pick on me. You can pick on me. That's fine.
okay, but you read a super chat a couple debates ago. Why are there a lot of quote unquote black people who are flat earthers? And you know, someone asked that, and that's a if they made that observation and they noticed that's you know.
Well, I know a lot of white people that are flat earthers too. I know far more white people.
Say Negro though.
I mean,
that has to do with the word.
Hold on, everybody.
I don't know. Wait.
Guys,
listen.
Mind of God say he wanted to know why I read that super chat. What does that have to do with?
No, I want to make a separate point that I believe them to be spiritual people. They are, even though they're in a low condition, they are deeply spiritual.
You already made me nervous earlier when you were doing your warnings about the Jews. Like that already made
me in a low condition. And nobody goes around calling people Caucasian in these. You know, I'm white, but I never heard anybody reference anything.
Yeah,
hey, that Caucasian
like,
guy.
You cracker the other day.
I don't even know if that's an offense. Like I can't keep up. I don't know if that's.
I don't want it to be offensive
now
because I believe Jesus is a so-called Negro, so I wouldn't say it in an offensive way.
It's just a really weird word to use. It's like why? Just call Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. It's like your
Jesus is a Negro.
That's where he's from.
That took a
I can't say Jew. I can't say Jew because you guys will think Israel, like Israel now, which I'm trying to delineate from that.
Yeah, I found that I'm not Jewish.
Let's move as far away from this as possible real quick. We're going to read this last super chat. Fredo Sarabia says, is there a place of milk and honey for Israelites? And if so, where?
I believe the kingdom of heaven will be established on earth. It's going to be on earth. Yeah, go for it. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, sorry. You missed the best part of that last super chat was the demon emoji, and I think he's really hitting the nail on the head when he's quoting the emoji Bible. Just saying.
Oh, nice.
By the way,
you know,
can I give Mind of God as something from my personal experience when it comes to the UFO things? Because going back 40 plus years, my almost 50 years of experience, I heard people like you all my life when it came to the UFOs. It came from things like Ken Hovind. It came from things like even Dr. Hugh Ross advocated this. It came from Hal Lindsey, and things like the late great planet Earth and things of the apocalypse that were supposed to be happening. Guess what? None of these things ever transpired. The thing was that demons had to use UFOs to get around because this was during the time coming out of the 50s and 60s where, there's Project Blue Book and there was a hot thing on TV, on shows of these things. It was a societal thing. And people played upon this. And everyone that I've ever heard back in those days, I'm sure now are saying what you would say later on, that they will apologize. But they're the ones people now that are not even in religion anymore. They're not believing any of this crap any longer, because these things that were prophesied, that supposedly that there's going to be decimations of America, and nuclear war and Holocaust and feast and famine and pestilence, none of these things ever came about, because it was all horse shit. And I think you basically don't realize that this is 2018, not 1972 any longer. Because I honestly got to tell you, man, you're saying the exact same shit I've heard all my life, and they've all got it wrong.
And I think, Steve, you hit the nail on the head, because that's been said for literally 2,000 years. Why hasn't, like, Nostradamus's prophecies come true? Why hasn't, like, any other dipshit who's just like, oh, yeah, the world's going to end tomorrow. Why didn't that come true?
Yep.
I saw it in the Bible.
Everyone.
Let me, guys, let me read this last one, because I want to talk about something before we close out. I want to make sure we leave enough time for that. But Mark Pizer says the new debate idea, mind of God versus Southern Israelite, in a debate on who the modern descendants of Jews are. I don't think that that Southern Israelite will come back on here. He's more than welcome to, but I think he was a little too distraught after the last one, when he went on his tirade and then got porn bombed and blamed us for porn bombing him. And so I don't know if he'll...
We didn't even know about till after the after the fact. How do we get blamed for that? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's nothing. We wouldn't do something like that. Like we make enemies on this show every single week, and we bring them back when they want to come back, and we don't when they don't. Like I don't take it personal. Anything that happens in these shows, I don't take personal. Like I don't, except for a couple of exceptions. There are a few exceptions of stuff that's just beyond what it should be, but for the most part, I don't take it personal. I want to tell you guys though about a game we're going to start playing, and maybe it might be cool to get through, just do one round of it tonight with these two guys and see how it goes. Are you both familiar with what ASMR is?
Yes.
No, sir. No, I know.
So ASMR is it's the people who talk like this into the microphone and they make noises, and it's supposed to like stimulate you. So I got to thinking, I was like, you know what? I have a really good idea for a game that we can all play, and we're gonna call it ASMR. Yes,
Kyle. Sorry, can I respond to Steve's comment if you don't mind? Like 2 seconds.
Oh God.
No, only because
we're gonna go down like another half an hour tirade and just something.
No, like,
make it quick.
It's literally 10 seconds, and I'm not here like on a PR campaign for myself, but I want to state that I'm sober-minded enough to know that what Steve said is true. That people have been doing that, and I have the potential to be. And it's not even that I'm saying that I'm right or wrong. I'm just reading what is there. And if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to be bitter or make up some massage story. I'm going to be on the side of like, well, the book is bullshit then. Like I have no issues. Like I'm not going to cry or whatever.
Oh, you will be in another 10 years.
All right.
Even less than that, probably.
That's fine. Yeah.
Cool.
Mind of God, you're just talking into the void. Like no one's like, everyone stopped listening like 10 minutes ago. We just want to die.
Let's relax. We're going to move on to something fun now. Okay. And the title of this game is called Asthma Attack. ASMR attack, like asthma attack. And the way it's going to work is from the live chat, I'm going to ask you, tonight we'll do 3 questions. I'm going to ask you 3 random questions, and we'll take the answers in a random order. Like one round it'll be the 4th comment, one round it'll be the 7th comment, and we're going to build a list. So I'll have 3 random things. And the what we do then is we add ASMR to the end of whatever that word is. And we go searching in YouTube to find out if that version of ASMR exists or not. And then the panel, whoever's on the show that particular time, will take a guess whether it exists or not. If they get it right, they get a point. If they don't get any points. The winner, whoever has the most points, gets to then look at the other people on the panel and say, okay, you have to create this version of ASMR. Whichever ones didn't have a corresponding thing already in YouTube, we'll have to do it live on the show. So I'd be like, Steve, make a shake and weight or a shake weight ASMR. And Steve would do it live on the show for a couple seconds. So just to see how this is going to work, let's try it out real quick.
All right.
Dave, can you get a browser window ready and search for whatever list we get put together to see if it exists. Here's the first question, everybody, and we'll take the 7th response. If I was going to get stuck in an elevator for 7 hours, I would definitely want to make sure I had this on me. What would you definitely have to make sure that you had on you? And start now. We'll take the 7th response. Let's see. Here we go. I hate the delay.
Oh, for a second, I thought it was between you and us, and I was like, are we just going to bounce around 7 things in an elevator for like 20 minutes?
No. All right, there's one. Personal lubricant, leg bag, fart bag. That's a 3, 4, 5. Come on. 6. A gun. Okay, so we've got a gun. That's number 1. All right. Question number 2. What's a random question we do? If now my mind's
stranded on
Steve,
highway.
ask a random question to get an answer.
If I could create a completely new sexual toy, it would have to have this with it, a part of it.
Okay, that's interesting. Now we have to wait on the first one's going to be good though. So Dave, you can go ahead and be looking for if there's gun ASMR.
The live chat are just fucking weird. There's some weird shit they just say.
But don't tell us
What
yet.
is wrong with you people?
All right. So okay.
Oh God.
All right.
Relax
batteries.
with the
All right,
Joker.
there's
I
1,
want to see the Joker
2,
ASMR.
3. Oh, boom! There it is. All right. Tentacles is number 2. Oh man. All right. Okay, so in the love story, Ryan knew he had done wrong and rushed to the store to get these for his the love of his life, to show how sorry he was. What did he get her? And we'll take the 10th response on this. This will be the last one. This is going to be funny. These answers are hilarious.
I like how there's just people spamming Kyle in the chat.
I know you can't take me with you, but I love you all. We have the best live chat on the planet. All right, here we go. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh no.
9. Okay, all right. So all right. That's it. We Oh man, this is hilarious. Tacos is the winner on that one. So we have a gun, tentacles, and tacos. Okay, so Dave, you can line up guns, tentacles, and tacos ASMR to see if any of those exist. But before we find out, I'm going to go around the panel. Steve, do you think that guns ASMR exists?
Yeah, somebody from Texas had to make ASMR
Okay.
on that.
Mind of God,
Yeah.
do you think gun ASMR exists?
Yeah, we can see it. But yeah, I do, because I can
Okay,
see the search.
Kaanfight.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. What about tentacle ASMR, Steve?
Oh, that's yeah, got to have that. That's Japanese anime.
All right. Mind of God?
Yes.
Kaanfight?
I'd definitely say 100% yes. I got to go with that anime hentai.
Okay. And tacos ASMR, Steve?
Yeah, because I know there's food ASMR things where people bite into crunchy stuff, so I would think
But we're looking for
possibly
specifically
somebody's done that.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Mind of God?
I'll just say no to be different.
Okay. Kaanfight?
You contrarian.
I think. Well, nowadays I feel like the problem with this game is like there's like an ASMR for everything. So I'm going to say yes, definitely tacos.
Okay.
Definitely
all right,
tacos.
So we'll now switch to the screen and find out. Dave, can you show us if gun ASMR exists?
Oh, by the way, it's hentai, not anime. Sorry, people.
Or-
you know what?
or
They're the
tentacles.
same fucking thing.
We can start with tentacles.
Anime belongs in the trash.
I'm gonna piss off every
right,
anime
Dave,
person on the
Let's
planet.
play a couple seconds
They're
of gun
triggered.
ASMR. Just click that first one. Let's hear what gun
My name is
ASMR
Lisa
is.
Sledge. Oh,
I
thank you
had
very
It
much.
sounds like
attempted
Lisa
to call
Smitch.
numerous lawyers, all who
Oh,
declined
skip
my
that
case.
ad. Sorry, Lisa. You can just click in the middle, Dave. That way, we're just gonna listen to a couple seconds of it. We don't have to get a thing. I don't hear anything. There we go.
Nothing to hear.
I want to see them like
Here a little
fire
bit.
the gun in the ASMR. That would be interesting.
Oh, really? She's literally just handling a. Really?
Yeah.
It's like gun, like
Wow.
This is.
How many views does this have?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay,
Views?
Dave, let's go
I can't
to.
read this. How many views does it have, Kyle? I can't. 56,000.
50,000.
What is this? Okay. Only
50,000.
Oh, you know.
Okay, let's go to Tentacle. Let's go to Tentacle
Wow.
ASMR. Let's see what that's about.
I feel like it'd be more depressing if that video had like 10 million views or something. I think we'd all just die inside.
Dude, anything
right,
over
just
like
click that
3,
first
I'm
one, I guess.
surprised. Make sure we're skipping the ads.
Go ball.
I can't help that one. It will
Enough.
skip it.
Oh, I don't know. Just click in the middle, Dave. I'm gonna try not to be sick.
Here she goes. Here she goes.
Cucumber.
Okay. All right. Bye. Let's go to Taco.
I'm 2 for 2,
Let's go to
baby.
Taco.
2 for 2.
Taco ASMR. They all three
Taco.
exist.
Oh,
They're all
thank you.
sponsored
Thank you
by
very
Taco.
much.
Oh, I can't.
Man.
Oh, this is.
I hate my life. What the hell have we been reduced
Oh
to?
man. See, that's
What
gonna
a
be. That's
shitty
gonna be
game
fun
was
though.
that?
That was
This isn't
awesome. What are you
right.
talking about? Look, the point is, what I was doing, where I came up with this idea. Here's how I came up with it, because this is a true story. I was googling something for a thing that we were doing the other day, and I just happened to think. I bet you that there is a flat Earth ASMR, and there is. There's a guy who literally draws. It's called, what was it, Steve? ASMartica.
Juranos. I don't know.
Play on.
Yeah, it's ASMartica. Yeah, kind of cool name actually.
But literally,
You
there's,
guys know the
there's
Earth is
ASMR for
flat.
everything. So, yeah, it is flat. Of course.
Never went to the
All
moon
right,
either,
so
right? Yep.
thanks for indulging me on that. We'll play for real sometime soon, and maybe get some ideas where they don't exist. But it would have been great to hear Steve do shake weight ASMR. Can you just do that to close us out, Steve? Can you give us some shake weight ASMR?
I don't have a shake rate. I don't know what would I have that make noise like
Just
that.
shake something. Shake
This
something.
video will be banned.
Oh, that couldn't have gone any better. Guys, feel free to dub in anything you want over top of what Steve was doing there.
I'm never gonna let that one down.
It was like a squeaky shake weight too. Needed lube.
The best thing would have been if you had your green screen up. Then they could have edited all kind of shit behind you.
That could be arranged.
Wait, I have two.
All right,
I have
guys.
two. This is like Kyle on Saturday.
Wow.
Can someone
You know,
please
it
edit
used to be-
Steve, except it's with the sandwiches they use like when they edit in porn, just like 2 sandwiches in his hand.
It used to be my thing on Saturdays. Now I spend it with Mind of God's people talking about flat Earth. I would much rather
Oh,
have
hell
2
yeah.
dicks in my hand. So we'll leave you on that. Thank you for joining us. We love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for we are so close to our goal all year, which is 20,000 people by Christmas. We are about less than 200 away, so we can make it happen. Appreciate you guys supporting us. We have the best viewers on YouTube, hands down, and every one of you guys are amazing. So thank you for being so cool. We'll do we have a private hangout tomorrow, Steve?
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
tomorrow?
4 Eastern. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see you guys at 4 Eastern tomorrow. I'll be on with Mr. Atheist Jimmy. We'll be back doing our show. It's not Ad Homies anymore, but we will be tackling 2 specific topics and videos tomorrow at 7, and then we'll see you back at Friday Night Fights at 9 o'clock. And until then, you guys take care and have a great evening.
Oh,
Good
Kyle,
night.
one thing. Is there an after show
Yeah.
today? There's.
No, it's
I'm
already
going to bed.
midnight.
It's already
This
midnight.
was the
Oh,
after show.
darn.
Yeah.
I wanted to stay up till like
Yeah.
4 a.m. Killing me.
Oh, fuck you. Look at that. That's excellent.
Non sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated.